scary.
I think that's the language that we as guys and men can speak to a little bit more, is like there's a respect aspect there. And also sometimes you're right, war is necessary sometimes. You can see it. There's sometimes a good reason to go to war.
And you have to stand up for yourself. And it taught me, and you know, I wish that I could have been taught a lot of those lessons in a different manner. But again, God has a plan for every one of us. God knew my future. God knew where I was going to be right now. You know, I am a believer, and I believe that. So
how did that come about? So you're getting into fitness. How did you find God, or how did God find you in the midst of all this?
Man, that's a good question. Because through pain and suffering, I turned to faith. Even at a young age.
Did somebody present it to you? Did somebody
not really
tell you? So you just started praying? Just
really looked up, sought out to God.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a couple people in there, and God has always been in my life. Mm-hmm. I've always felt his presence. Even when I was ignoring him, I felt his presence. And God loves us all, man. And I'll tell you,
absolutely,
we forget, you know, people that are in prison or people that are homeless, these are still God's children. Absolutely. Murderers, you know, sinners, they're God's children. And I think sometimes in our society, we forget that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I needed God more than anything. Yeah. And man, I've just felt his presence. And again, I went down that road for a hot minute. I really did. And, you know, again, I'm glad that I did it. You know, and I look in it, and of course, as a man, it put insecurity in me and abandonment issues in me. And then when I got out of there, not long, I was back with my parents. Then my mom left. It was horrible, you know, still. And then running with my brother, and I ended up back in the system at 15 to basically 17. And I ended up getting in trouble, joining a gang, you know, running the street. Yeah. And that was the place where I really, really, because I was older, found fitness even more. It was the same thing. It was another boot camp style. And I'll never forget the day that I went. They picked me up from juvenile, and it's in the middle. I was in Texas at this point. It's in the middle of nowhere, and they drive, and it's a far drive from the juvenile detention center. And the guy's talking to me. Man, I thought I made a new friend. You know, big old boy. I'll never forget. It's just this big old white boy. And I'm like, man, he's enormous, but he's so nice. And we're talking. I was like, so, you know, are they going to shave my head, or is my hair probably cool like this? He goes, oh, man, it looks good. It's short. And I'll never forget. We pull into the gate, and this dude looks at me, and he, out of nowhere, it was like a new dude.
Oh, no.
And he goes, and he's cussing him. He's like, get the F out of my truck. Da-da-da-da-da. It was a van. Get the F out of my van. And about 8 enormous men surrounded that van, pulled me out of it. And then right there's a tire on the ground. And they go, Halo. And I'm like, what? He goes, Halo. They made me pick up the tire, lock out your elbows over your head, and go run laps in the Texas heat. Man, I must have thrown up until I had none left. Yeah. And then they just absolutely kill me. Then we go to the door, and they give me instructions how to enter their building. So you're supposed to, you knock on the door 3 times. And he goes, I still remember, he goes, because they called you Boot. Your name was Boot Fell. My last name's Fell. And he goes, you say, Sergeant, boom, boom, boom. Boot Fell, request permission to enter your building. And of course, I screwed it up. They did it all over again. Finally, I got it right. We go into this classroom. All the other kids are in there. And of course, they're laughing because they've all been through it. And he tells me where my seat is. So now I just go over and sit down. And he goes, did I tell you could sit down? Did it all over again. My brother, when I went to bed that night, there wasn't an inch of my body that I could even move. Yeah. And the next day, I mean, I'm walking around there like T-Rex. Yeah. And so sometimes, man, and it's true, the human body can be pushed to extreme measures. Do I recommend that for somebody coming to me to my gym class? No, because I'm running a business. No, come back. This isn't David Goggins here. But through that, and then, man, I was there for almost 2 years.
Wow. And getting pushed to the brink like that consistently.
But man, I went beast mode on them. And I got out. Yeah. I got my GED through that. I joined the United States Army.
Yeah, yeah.
And man, I said I don't know any different.
Well, I want to get to the Army. But what? So it sounds like you were you basically have PTSD from working out. What snapped in you to make you say, "Oh, I love this. I like this"?
It just hit to a point where I'm like, pain is my comfort zone.
When did you realize you liked that?
I don't think I realized it until I got back in the civilian world and even in the military. Like, I went and immediately aced my PT test, and I didn't realize till I was probably, I don't know, maybe in my late 20s, early 30s. Because, see, I'd never lifted weights before, because all of this was more body weight, running, military style.
Yeah.
But then when I found a weight room, when I got out of the Army, I just immediately took to it and got completely obsessed.
Yeah.
And see, there's something in me. And at 42, you look back on your life and you understand a lot more that you didn't even know then.
Absolutely.
And man, and I'll tell you, and for years, from a lot of that, I struggled. And you can ask a lot of people that have been in my life for years. I went down a rabbit hole, man. I drank so much. And man, ended up giving up booze and walking another way. But there was a lot of pain and a lot of everything left over. But man, people are like, dude, you just have another gear. And I'm crazy. And I put that crazy in fitness. But again, I know it looking back on it. Look at all the people, even at my age now, man. When I see at my gym, I've seen marriages restored. I've seen people get sober. I've seen people look in the mirror and love what they look like. I'm serving Christ and his children. And it's given a man a purpose, a street kid purpose. And when any human being finds purpose, they've found life.
That's so good.
And when we're serving other people, and see, through all that bull crap and all that pain, I would have done anything to change it at the time. But again, man, God knows what we don't know.
Yeah.